So season 3 of Yellowjackets just wrapped up, and it was a mess. Yellowjackets was such an interesting show at first. It followed this high school soccer team whose plane crashed in the Canadian wilderness, and the team slowly started to lose their sanity as the show went on. The show started out amazing, but as the show went on, I feel as if the writers didn't have any direction for the show anymore, and were just making it all up the day before they filmed. Now, I still love the show and love the actors, and will still watch season 4 if it ever gets renewed, but before season 4 comes out, I feel like something needs to drastically change. This season has some of the worst degrees of character assassinations I've ever seen. They made characters just completely unlikable for absolutely no reason. They killed characters off in a stupid and pointless way. So in this video, I want to talk about why Yellowjackets season 3 is a complete mess. Let's start with the cliffhanger of season 2 with the cabin burning down. The characters felt like death was around every corner, just for them to pick up back in season 3 where their new civilization is being built and everything seemed fine. They said they kept the cabin on fire all winter to survive. I feel like it would have been pretty important for them to show what happened, and you're telling me no one died during that time either? They just completely glossed over it because they didn't know what to do. The whole Coach Ben trial was dumb. They gave Ben the death penalty for allegedly burning down the cabin, but they couldn't hold Shauna accountable for her actions. They still haven't bothered to show us who or what burned down the cabin. If you're gonna kill off a big character for burning down the cabin, they should at least show what actually happened. I personally believe that no one burned down the cabin. The fireplace was never cleaned, so that's what started the fire. My biggest complaint for this show is the writers not knowing what to do with characters. So instead of giving them proper story arcs or deaths, they just butcher them and write them out of existence. The show does a horrible job portraying the adult timeline. The first victim of this was adult Lottie. They gave her almost no screen time in season 3. She died in episode 4. No one knew how she died until they revealed it 6 episodes later in the finale. This big reveal was Callie pushing Lottie down the stairs, which it was so cartoonish, it was honestly pretty funny. Her death meant nothing to the current story or story arc. Her death only mattered in the progressing of Callie's arc. They started making Lottie and Callie's relationship interesting just for them to have Callie kill Lottie. The same thing can be said with adult Van. I can't name one thing adult Van did in the entire show. She had no story arc other than her getting cancer, which they just kind of forgot about that as well. Her entire character in season 2 and 3 was her on a leash for Ty and doing whatever Ty says. Her death once again really had no impact in the adult timeline other than progressing Ty's character arc once again. Even adult Natalie's death was pointless. It did nothing for the story or the characters. They all just kind of forgot about her except for Misty, even though Natalie is the reason they were all rescued, as we saw in the season 3 finale. And Ty even said they wouldn't be here without her in season 1. Misty was the only one impacted by Natalie's death, as she was the one who killed her, and they were somewhat close. She started to drink more, but any scene where she was drunk, they just kind of made fun of her and moved on and never brought it up again. Another big question I have is why didn't adult Lottie and adult Travis not get the plane purgatory scenes? They were the only 2 adult characters who died who didn't get the plane scene. Everyone else, when they died, they got to interact with their younger selves, except for Lottie and Travis for some reason. There's still so many unanswered questions in the show. I know we're gonna have some lingering questions. Not everything will be answered so quickly. We still have mysteries from season 1 that still haven't been solved. Why did Laura Lee's teddy bear suddenly combust and cause the plane to explode? Why did the bear willingly sacrifice himself? How did Javi survive the wilderness for that long, and who was his friend that he was talking about? Who was Coach Ben talking to in the caves? It wasn't the gas in the cave causing hallucinations. They showed that they had to go further into the cave before they started to hallucinate. Or else Mari would have experienced hallucinations herself. We still have no idea what happened to Crystal's body after Misty killed her. I'm assuming a wolf or some kind of animal got to her first, but who really knows? Some questions were answered this season, like the group hallucinations in the cave were caused by whatever that gas was. The screams they were all hearing came from frogs. So while watching this, I thought they were actually going to go down the route of all this being in their heads, and they were just losing it, which I think would be the best choice for the show. But at the same time, Van gets a phone call from an old unplugged phone in a random box with the other version of Taissa on the phone talking to Van. I don't think the writers can make up their minds on whether or not they want all this to be supernatural or not. And in my opinion, if they did make it all supernatural, I think that would be a horrible choice. I would just excuse everything they did while in the wilderness. I'm also getting sick of the man with no eyes. They first showed him in a flashback with Taissa's grandmother and showed him throughout season 2 and 3, but we still have no idea what or who he even is. I don't think the writers have a plan for his character at all. And why could Akilah, Van, and Shauna all see the no-eyed man when they had the hallucinations in the cave? Why could they even see him all of a sudden when Ty was the only one who even knew about him before this? The showrunners can say whatever they want, but I don't really believe they actually have a plan for 5 seasons of the show and that everything is structured out, and that they're leaving little breadcrumbs throughout the show and everything will make sense in the end. I just don't buy it. None of the characters can make up their mind on if they should worship Lottie or worship the wilderness. They just keep going back and forth. Shauna being Antler Queen was a horrible choice. Throughout the entire show, they were giving us little hints that Lottie is the Antler Queen. I think Jackie would have been the best choice for Antler Queen. All the girls still see her as the captain of the team. Shauna's been hallucinating her since Jackie's death. I think it would have been better for the whole group to collectively hallucinate Jackie as Antler Queen. Mari's death was so predictable. Everyone knew she was Pit Girl. The trailers basically said it. I just thought it was lazy writing, but maybe that's just me. I'm not sure what they're doing with Walter anymore. I thought he was a good character in season 2, but what is he even doing here anymore? Do the writers even know if he's a good guy? Does he have any alternative motives? He's just a silly character who helps out when needed. The hunt from the opening minutes of the first episode felt drastically different. I don't know if they meant to do that, but if they did, I could see the opening minutes of the first episode of the hunt seen through Shauna's eyes as she thought they all loved it out there, but it was just her. And in the season 3 finale, with all the added context, we were seeing it through the rest of the girls' perspectives, which would make sense. But during that hunt, the only person hunting Mari was Shauna. Everyone else had their own side quests. It just felt so off and weird when you compare it to the first episode. They also, for some reason, completely ditched Travis and Natalie's relationship. They were so close in season 1 and 2, but they barely had any scenes together in season 3. These characters were supposed to be very close with each other after being rescued, but they actually kept in contact. None of that development happened in this season. In fact, they moved further away from that. How are they going to get closer and show them making their pact when they will most likely be rescued next season? I think the writers just kind of forgot. Making Melissa a more prominent character in season 3 was a bad choice. She didn't do anything prior to season 3. I mean, I don't even remember seeing her in season 1 or 2 at all. They introduced the adult version of Melissa in one episode just for her to kill Van and completely disappear. I think the writers were setting up Mari to be another survivor, but completely abandoned that because they just wanted Hilary Swank. Ty's family just disappeared. She had a wife and kid that she abandoned and hasn't been brought up since. For some reason, they made Lottie a side character who did basically nothing the entire season. She killed Edwin for no reason. That's about all she does. And apparently she's Wilderness Jesus now, I guess? I feel like the writers learned that fans really cared about Jackie and Shauna's relationship, who Pit Girl was and who the Antler Queen was. They thought as long as they gave us answers to those questions that they could just throw everything else out the window. I don't think they ever planned on Antler Queen or Pit Girl being this huge reveal, but they played into fan theories so much, and it's so frustrating that they did. The writers picked up that fans wanted confirmation on Jackie and Shauna's relationship so bad, so they just threw in a couple lines here and there hinting at their relationship, and they brought Jackie back as a ghost again, which would have been fine if Jackie turned out to be Antler Queen, but she wasn't. She was really there for no reason. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing Ella Purnell back as Jackie, but it didn't feel earned or make any sense for Jackie to be back. It didn't even add anything to the story, and fans ate it up for some reason. I'll see reviews for this season and they loved it just because of Jackie and Shauna. I don't really think that's what the show was supposed to be about in the beginning. It's supposed to be this dark psychological horror about these girls that went through these traumatic situations and how they are handling those traumas. The show suffers so much from its pacing. So much happens, but it feels like nothing is happening, and it's just not interesting at all. We finally get to these big moments that are supposed to be these big emotional reveals, but we didn't really care. We already knew it was going to happen because of the adult timeline. Really, the only part of this season that I liked was the final scene with Natalie using the radio to call for help. It was just so well done. The acting, the cinematography, and the music was phenomenal. But that was really the only part of the season that felt satisfying, and it really sucked to see that. I think another reason why I did not like this season was also because I was more involved in the Yellowjackets fandom, and unfortunately it's definitely one of the worst fandoms I have ever seen. I'm not saying the entire fandom is bad, but a good chunk of it is. So I think that might have impacted my enjoyment on the season. Season 1 of the show was just incredible. It's actually one of my favorite seasons of television I've ever seen, but it just got worse as it went on, and that's really sad to see. I really hope the writers will do better in season 4 if it ever gets renewed, and I'll still watch it. But if they go down the same route they did with season 3, it's just going to get even worse. That's really all I have to say about Yellowjackets season 3. I really hope things will get better in season 4, but we will just have to wait and see. If I got anything wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. And if anyone's still here, thank you all for watching.